questions, do you want them at the end or throughout?
So we were sort of welcoming them throughout. We were, depending on how many people sort of come to it, we were quite hoping it would be quite interactive. There are certain little breakout sessions if we've got enough time. Like somebody asked people to make like a little fundraising plan, and we do like a little icebreaker just where people introduce themselves, I suppose. So yeah, it'd be really nice if people could turn their mics and cameras on and speak, but if not, then they can put it in the chat, I suppose.
Yeah.
So this what we've set up here is a Zoom webinar, so it's a bit different to sort of the Zoom
right, okay.
might have been in before. So it is really about you guys like presenting out. You can't see everyone else's title, but the chat has been working as an introduction tool. And then we also have a Q&A. There's a polls feature that I haven't used yet. Ooh. So if you think of something you want to set up as a poll, you can do that. That's one way of interacting with people. But the Q&A stuff's working quite nicely. There's a separate box for that, so it doesn't get lost in the chat. And then mark which questions you want to take and answer.
That sounds cool.
And then, yeah,
I can monitor those for you, so don't worry about looking for the questions to answer. I can read them out to you, so just concentrate on your slides.
Yeah. So then there's one of two ways you can kind of do the questions. Again, depending on your sort of style and how you like to do it. I've seen it done both ways. You can either like present and talk through your slides and do your stuff, and then have questions towards the end of the session and just do like a little chunk of Q&A. And then, or sometimes we've done it whereby people are talking through a thing, and then the call host, so Ree, would pop up and be like, hey, there's a question related to this one, and sort of interrupt you a little bit. So it depends on how you prefer to present.
That sounds cool.
I mean, that works for us. We don't mind any interruptions.
Yeah, we're good with it. Yeah, if anybody wants to ask, because we'll obviously have like different sections on the different slides and things. It'd be really great if people could, like we say, if people want us to focus more on one section, or if they have any questions regarding one section, then it's probably better to do it during that section than it is like right at the end, I suppose.
It works quite nice, especially if it is kind of chunked up as well already. Then we can look for questions that relate to that section. And then again, I'm not sure if you have heard about it or not, but at the festival we set up a space called the coffee shop. And it's a separate, it's like a separate, it's a Google Meet room, and at the end of the session we invite people to go over and carry on discussing stuff that they've started in the session. And if you guys are free, you're welcome to go join people there, and then that does look like more traditional Zoom, and you will get that kind of like face-to-face bit of networking stuff too. So yeah, if you've got time, and I'll post links to that sort of toward the end of the session, so everybody knows where to go.
That sounds great.
Do you want to test the slide to make sure your screen share is working properly, or are you comfortable?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, Lydia, our icebreaker is going to be a bit different then.
Yeah, I suppose it would be.
I'm working on it before podcast.
What we've been doing is, so like the call host will say as you join the chat, like just so like mention in the chat who you are and where you're from.
Yeah.
So I'll do a little introduction and just be like, introduce yourself so we know who's here, sort of thing. But anything that you want like them to answer, they can answer in the chat if you still want to make it interactive that way.
Well, if you see the screen, it wasn't too in depth for icebreaker. It was just who's here really, who's interested.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you leave that up as people are coming in, they can use that as a cue for what they write in the chat. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah, because people, there's always that little bit of awkward at the beginning where we're waiting for the room to fill up and people and stuff. So that's probably would work. Cool. Well, we're about at time, so I'll disappear and then click broadcast, and we can start letting people in if everyone's okay.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks so much.
No worries. Have a great session.
Thank you.
Almost said you too. Great start.
He's still there.
Yeah, because I can still hear. Have a wonderful session. Thank you.
As you're joining, there's just a couple of icebreaker questions. The slide's gone, but if you just introduce yourself in the chat so we know who's joining, there we go. Just answer the questions in the chat. Then I'll introduce in a minute.
It's all exciting.
It's very exciting.
I've had far too much coffee.
You know, you made it.
I've had far too much coffee. I've got the jitters now.
As you're joining, just start introducing yourself in the chat. There's a couple of icebreaker questions that you can answer.
Oh, I can't see the chat.
Ooh, 23 participants.
Yep. It's down at the bottom. So, hello and welcome to How Best to Support Challenge and Events participants through the fundraising year. I'm Ree and I'm your host for this session. If you have any issues, just drop me a message using the chat function. You can also use the chat function to introduce yourself and where you're from. There are a couple of icebreaker questions that you can answer. A couple of housekeeping notes. The session is being recorded just so that you're aware, and you can use the Q&A function to submit any questions that you might have throughout the session. We'll also be going over to the coffee shop afterwards. We'll post a link later if you want to continue the conversation. With that being said, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Lydia and Michael from Plymouth RAG.
Hello. So hi everyone, my name is Lydia. I'm the outgoing challenges coordinator from Plymouth RAG.
I'm Michael, either one. I'm the outgoing deputy challenges from Plymouth, and I'm also the current Kilimanjaro leader going into 2021. Thank you, COVID.
We thought we'd give you a little background on, well, our backgrounds, I suppose. I'm graduating, hopefully. So I, in my first year, was an East African Playgrounds participant. I actually attended a Gorilla Trek info meeting before I attended a lecture. Sorry, Mum, if you are watching. In my second year, I was a challenge leader for EAP, and again started getting a little bit more interested in RAG and involved in sort of the day-to-day running of it, and took a bit of an interest in the third sector. I took a break and went to Scotland in my third year for a placement year, and then came back as challenge coordinator in my fourth year. Safe to say, completely hooked now, and definitely had to have a conversation with my mum about not doing a PhD in neuroscience and going into the third sector. But yeah, that's me.
Like I say, I'm Mike. I'm just graduating fourth year as well. I joined RAG in my second year. First year, I was one of those classic people that loved the idea of it, but found everything a bit daunting. So waited into my second year. I wish I did it sooner, but that's the way it goes. Second year, I was the
social sec.
I was the social sec, which of course, if anyone knows me, they know that's the perfect role for me. Then I went in the placement year, and I came back and signed up to be the kiddie leader as soon as I could. And then I slowly stepped up to be the events deputy as the year went on, and we started to get a lot on our plate. So we shared out some responsibility, which went very well for us.
Yeah. So in today's session, we're going to talk you through the most effective ways that we found that challenge leaders and challenge coordinators can support participants through the fundraising year, any issues that they might face, and hopefully how to overcome them, right from when a participant signs up to a trip or a fundraising event, right all the way through to them reaching their fundraising total. So the way the session is going to work is, if anyone has any questions, and please feel free to ask lots, then pop them in the chat and we'll be able to answer them as we go along. It would be really great for everyone to share all of their experiences and perspectives to help everyone feel a bit more comfortable enough to support everyone's fundraising. We're all from different backgrounds. I know there's some participants, there's some committee members, there's some people from the charities. We've all got completely different experiences in fundraising, some good, some bad. So feel free to share and ask questions, and we can hopefully get the most out of it.
Right, so cracking on getting started. Sorry, my skip button is very sensitive. I keep leaning on it. So I do apologise for that in advance. So getting started, leadership training. Now this is vital to make sure you have amazingly motivated leaders throughout the year from the get-go. So leadership training isn't just when you start, it's what happens throughout the year. As we all know, as great as we think we all are, there's always more to learn. There's always more ways to improve. So I've broken it down into 4 main categories. Now, people that have been involved in charities will know that you can do all these things in-house, or you can go out of house to third parties, to the charities themselves, who can sort of train you up to their sort of standard. So charity training at the start is really how you get everyone motivated for the cause. You learn about what the charities are about. You might go through a few case studies, and you learn about the amazing impact that the charity has firsthand. Now, that is vitally important to get you guys passionate, to get the drive going, and that is needed for promo season most of all, as that's how you sell. They can tell, or they can read from your approach that you know what you're talking about, and that's vital for promoting challenges, because that's what makes it genuine. Yeah, like I say, so when leaders have that initial spark in the first place, that's how they pass it down through the hierarchy structure through to the participants to keep them going throughout the year. So into the next one. So after charity training is recruitment training. Now, again, I won't go too much into this one, because recruitment training is how to get participants, not how to support your participants. But I just want to mention it's how you sort of like you channel that inspiration, that drive that you've learned from the charity, and put it into an effective recruitment season. But we all know from some of the other events that have gone on in these Zoom meetings that we know all about an effective recruitment season. So again, I won't go into that one too much. Fundraising training. So you'll teach your leaders about the art of mind mapping, networking, different types of fundraising events, everything you want to think about, to consider, all of that stuff. And really it's transferable skills that you're teaching your leaders that they can then pass on to their participants, whether they're in one-to-ones or in workshops. They really are effective, and you want to lock down on that in the first place. So if you guys want to make sort of like structures from fundraising, whether you can take those from the charity or from handovers and rags, and just really kind of grow and develop on those as you pass them down to your leaders. And your last one is leadership training. Now, this one is the biggest one for me. So it's what makes your leaders tick, what makes them who they are. So as we all know, there are loads of different types of leadership, whether effective ones, less effective ones, and they all differ to the type of person who they are. So in these kind of training things, we like to find out who our leaders are and how they think. We like to teach them how to self-reflect and to plan, as that really kind of levels them out and makes them ready to step up and really channel their passion and get them ready for the challenges that are coming in the coming year. And they are vitally important. I did want to take a few seconds to talk about my experience as a challenge leader. So not everyone does actual leadership courses, but there are some vital takeaways that you can really grow from these. And I won't drag out this too much. You can ask me about it in the coffee break thing afterwards. I will tell you about in a bit. But for me, that's what kept our team fundraising throughout the COVID lockdown. During the main initial lockdown where everyone went silent, our team still managed to absolutely excel and smash. I think raising about $5,000, and that was because of a different way of thinking that I took away from this leadership course. It made me think about decisions from a business point of view, instead of just a student that's passionate and driven and will go in any direction I'm told to run. And really that's it for leadership training. I'll pass you over to Lydia for her section now. Get ready to be amazed.
So it's really important for participants to start off right, and for them to be fully equipped with all the information that they're going to need to start, so they don't start to panic right after signing up. We all know too well that if a participant is left in the dark and isn't contacted soon after signing up, then they can become quickly overwhelmed, and they're more likely to drop out of the trip or the event altogether, which obviously isn't great for you as a RAG or the charity especially. So a participant's fundraising journey, shall we say, normally starts with a welcome meeting. This is the first meeting that you will have as a team after the initial information meeting. It's put on by the charity representative, but it's facilitated by you as a RAG and the challenge leaders, and all the participants that have signed up to the trip are asked to attend. One little hack that we've always found is with poor attendance is if you just put compulsory in front of the meeting name, then they will fall for it. But it's really going to be beneficial for them. So yeah, put compulsory in front of the name. Participants should be given a basic introduction to fundraising where they can talk about any previous experiences they've had and how they can build on it throughout the year. The charity partner or representative will give them lots of great in-depth information on the charity that will hopefully make them more passionate about the cause they're raising for. This is going to really help them when it comes to talking to potential donors. If people come across as knowledgeable and enthusiastic, then donors are far more likely to contribute towards the cause than if they don't really know what they're talking about, there's misinformation, and that's definitely not what you want. So in the welcome meeting, it will also be the first opportunity for challenge leaders, we call them adventures down in Plymouth. So it would be the first opportunity for challenge leaders to meet the rest of the team. So this is why it's so important for them to act responsibly, to be approachable and friendly right from the start. So it puts participants at ease and it means that they're comfortable asking them for help throughout the year. Within the meetings, it's really great to include some nice little breakout sessions for participants to not only start bonding and working well within the team and like starting to get to know each other as friends, but it means that they can hit the ground running with activities such as creating fundraising plans. It's always great to start making plans and ideas when you're surrounded by lots of other people who have the knowledge and experience. They can start bouncing ideas off each other, and the charity partner and challenge leaders can support them and inspire some new ideas. And maybe in our case this year, maybe suggest some alternatives, because we've had some really crazy fundraising ideas. One of ours actually wanted to auction off a sword that was engraved with the MRF logo, that we're still kind of apologizing for, but yeah. So maybe suggest some alternatives in that case. But this is also where participants can be given all their great quality stash like t-shirts, buckets, jumpers, stickers, money pots, and all of the great physical resources that can help them fundraise throughout the year. To round off a welcome meeting, it's nice to have like a social afterwards. They don't have to be drinking socials as the first one, but it means they can all bond more as a team in like a laid back environment. You can book a table at Nando's that always goes down a treat, or book out a couple of bowling alleys, or, you know, go out for a cheeky spoons, I suppose. But yeah, welcome meetings are completely vital. You get all the information right off the bat. It's within the first couple of weeks of signing up, and everyone can start working together as a team.
Amazing. We all have a cheeky Nando's, that's for sure.
Always.
So this next section is on leadership one-to-ones and how that supports their fundraising. So to start it off, you want to teach your leaders how to deliver effective one-to-ones and really the whole purpose behind them. So they're to really get to know your participants. So you can't deliver an effective fundraising plan if you don't know your participants. And that's a point that your leaders need to know from day one. So in a leadership training, like I spoke about before, you can go into how to deliver one-to-ones, workshops and stuff effectively. But the whole point of one-to-ones is that you can deliver the personal experience, which can be settling. It can get people motivated if they're slightly lost. It's a way of channeling their focus and passion again back into fundraising. So how I always start my one-to-ones is straight away, whether they're casual or informal. I tend to do mine in the SU, by the bar, sometimes in the library. Depends on the one-to-one, what the situation is. But as you go through the year, they might get a bit more serious, as you need to slightly boost someone up to get up on with their motivations. But the very first ones I find are best when they're very casual. So I will ask them all kinds of personal questions, where anything about them, what they love, what they do, and just to get to know them, where as a leader, in the back of my mind the whole time I'm thinking, how can I use everything that they're talking about to channel into a networking mind map? Now again, we'll go into what networking mind maps are later, but that's the level you want to be at. How can I help this participant achieve their goals and their dreams through the casual conversation? So from there is where we will go into plans and development and the personal fundraising journey, should we say. So I'll talk about how events they can, different events they can do. I can use some of their ideas to try to trigger some more inspirational ideas from them. Remember that if they haven't fundraised before, it might be slightly daunting for them. but also they might have brand new ideas and insight, creative thinking that you yourselves that have been in fundraising for a long time, or potentially not, that you might not have thought of before, which is a really cool way of thinking about it. So I'll tell them about size events, whether you want to work with other people, who you need to be involved, venues, potential timeline. I like thinking in these few months, you need to have 2 big events and at least 3 small events. And then if they can work out a rough kind of like monetary fundraising target or whatever per event, which is really cool to lay out your year. And that is motivating in itself. So that's the great thing about one-to-ones. And they can be as personal as you want them to be. So like I say, every one-to-one is different. It depends on the participant and it depends on the time of year. But you'll kind of pick that up as you go along. So as new leaders, you'll learn as you go. So it's the whole point of them is a casual catch up, is a checkup, make sure everyone's all right. But they can be slightly adapted as you go. And then when it comes to plans, I always set a goal for each one-to-one. Is first of all that a participant will come to me with a few ideas, a few creative thinking, unless it's the very first one, of course, but throughout the year, they might have a few ideas. But the goal at the end is that they leave with a notepad full. And when I say full, I mean pages and pages. The first one of the networking mind map that Lydia will tell you about. I want brainstorming in all kinds of creative bubbles, whether it's colourful or not. I suggest colours because that's just age creativity. And then I want plans. So not just ideas, I want in-depth plans. Who you need to talk to for your events, where you need to go, what kind of venues you want. So let me pitch a scenario to you. So you're a fundraiser, you've just started, and you're thinking, I want to do a quiz night. They're quite common. We all love quizzes. Where do I want to do? I want to go to the SU or my campus. Amazing. So you go up to the SU manager, and then you say, is there any dates free? Can I book something? And they're like, sure. What's the plan? What's the idea? What's going to look better? Someone that says, I don't know, I might do a quiz. It could be fun. We could have a room of like 30 people. Or someone that has a plan and says, I want a room on these dates if it's free. I need this size. These are the facilities I'm going to need. This is what it's going to bring to you as an establishment because they'll be buying drinks or whatever. And this is what we'll get out of it. And in today's climate, here's how we're prepared for COVID. Spatial awareness, sanitation, PPE if needed, So that sort of stuff just goes down an absolute treat. So that's the end of every one-to-one. They have a book. So whether they're currently active in their fundraising, whether their dissertation is or what uni workload, family workload is starting to get too much, they have plans. So when they do want to come in and step back up, they're ready for it. And I find that absolutely key in my year. Moving on to the next slide. I think that's still me. It is still me. Lucky you guys. Is workshops. So workshops are very similar to one-to-ones, but they slightly lack that personal one-on-one touch because a workshop is the delivery of information that is constant across the board. It doesn't differ between person to person and it sets a standard. Now, what that means is you can deliver any message, and as they say in the slides, it's keen to have a theme. Whether it's how-to bucket collections, fundraising workshops, you name it, workshops are great for everything because you can break down information. You can break it down. You can make it simple and you can make sure everyone is at a set level. And as RAG, as challenge leaders, you of course want to be top of the game. So you want your participants to know to be the best, and workshops are amazing for that. So where the value of workshops come from is the mixing of people and the sharing of ideas and the learning together. So unlike the one-to-ones, you have other people in the room that are either at different stages or are at the same stage, whether that's through fundraising experience, you name it, everything is to play for in a workshop. So I love mixing people together, brainstorming together, capturing people's engagement with whatever you're talking about. We don't like to talk at them, talk with them, have creative activities and ideas to really trigger the moment. Make sure there's a take-home message at the end, bullet point stuff. It's that's the difference between an effective workshop and a not effective workshop. So how I would potentially lay one out or run one is, as people come in, they tend to have their very first social connections or friends that they've signed up with, and that's perfectly fine. That's okay. We encourage people to sit with your friends. We're not against that. We're all about friends here at RAG. And start off with an icebreaker. So get them involved, get them thinking creatively and engaging most importantly. And then boom, straight away, I'll have a second icebreaker. But the difference is I want people up and moving about. So that's the best way to remember names, because that's going to be the most difficult thing for your participants for a good few months. And as I say, it's that mixing of people, making new friends, building that social aspect of the team. And that's where the best ideas are going to come from, the brainstorming. Because like I say, you'll learn off each other. And that's the absolute value of workshops. You can adapt them however you like. I tend to say, if in handovers, when your rags do your end of year handover, you might have a structure that you find effective that you might want to give to the next year. But I would also expect the challenge leader to kind of like step up and take on some ownership to develop their leadership skills in planning and delivering an effective workshop. So like I say, they can be as formal and informal as you like. Personally, I would say get rid of the formality, make it fun, make it casual, because that's the best way your participants are going to take in any message. And really that's the drive home message of supporting your participants fundraising throughout the year. Location can vary. I've done workshops in lecture theatres, which was quite daunting at first. But I've also done workshops in the SU with a drink in hand of water.
We've got a question.
Shoot.
Yeah. What cool tools do you like using to create engaging activities?
What cool tools? Well, that's a good question. Thank you to whoever sent that in. So you can do handouts as tools. They sometimes work, but they're quite often a waste of paper, in my opinion. But cool tools are ways of presenting your activity, but breaking it down to get people involved, such as big mind maps on a huge board. So if you can take in people's ideas, plot it out, if you can then feedback to them straight away, saying, oh, these ideas are great. You can have all kinds of avenues coming off these, like as mind maps do. Other kind of tools.
I love the ones that you can send in. So you create the virtual mind maps online. So if people don't really want to shout out, first of all, in like an initial workshop, they're really great when you can, they use them in lectures. I'll make sure I get the name of it. I'll post the link on the site. But they use them in lectures. You literally just type it in on your phone and it comes up on a big board and it's all really fancy and everybody can read the writing, and it seems to work pretty well for people that maybe don't want to speak out so soon.
Yeah, especially in early workshops. Those are great.
Yeah.
I also like giving people prior warning. So when I make a Facebook event for the workshop, I'll tell them what it's about. Maybe to have a few ideas in the first place, to really like make sure you hit the ground running when you first get there. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that was a really good answer. We've got another question.
Oh, I love it.
What are your favourite or best icebreakers?
My favorite, oh Christ.
Most embarrassing moment, always.
Yes.
Always.
When it comes to social aspects, finding out the weirdest thing about the person sitting next to you is the best way to bond. It really is. And I guarantee that's the one memory that you'll take throughout the year. When you're halfway up Everest or Kili or Machu, you'll be like, oh, remember that one time that you kissed Boris Johnson? I don't know. I think that's quite as a terrible example. I apologize, everyone. But
I never heard that one.
those are the best icebreakers. Embarrassing facts, or even lateral thinking. So if you take quick quizzes or weird scenarios online, put them on the board and ask people how they would solve it together. And if they haven't met the people next to them, again, great way of bonding and really and breaking the ice. That's what it says on tin.
Cool. Shall I move on to the next one?
Yeah. I'll cover everything.
Cool. Obviously, my screen's just crashed.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about bucket collections, and I think these are a great way to fundraise and for you to support participants. Bucket collections seem to be really hit or miss with people. Some absolutely love them and rely on them to be their main source of fundraising. Some people manage to raise hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in one go, while others can't stand them and they seem to spend more money on their train fare getting there, which is a real shame. Something I've always found really helpful in preparing participants was either like a how-to guide beforehand or some demonstrations in a workshop, as Mike said. This way they're not totally thrown in the deep end and they feel more comfortable asking strangers for money, basically. There are some key things that collectors should be made aware of before they start. The first is don't shake your bucket. Obviously, this is a big no-no and you can get into a fair amount of trouble. Second is a fairly obvious one, but don't get in anybody's way. Don't cause any obvious obstructions like standing in doorways or standing in the middle of the pavement. You also need to make participants aware of the importance of permits and their letters of authority. Without these, you can't collect, and each time you collect, you get a new permit, so it's different for each city. Your letters of authority you get at the start of each year, and they're personal to each collector. Sometimes cities only hand out a certain amount of permits, and if you've got a huge team and they say like 20-30 permits and you're all saturated on one street, you're not going to get that much money. So it might be worth the leader splitting the team up into different groups, so one team collects one weekend and one team collects another weekend, just so everybody gets a fair shot at raising a lot. The next one is a fairly obvious one, but be happy and approachable and smiley. It's so important to be approachable. I tell participants that people tend to match about a third of your energy. If you're kind of dull and boring and monotone, then no one's really going to stop for you. But if you're bubbly and enthusiastic, then people are far more likely to engage with you. And most importantly, knowledge of the charity that you are collecting for. It's imperative to know the ins and the outs of the charity. And I'm not talking about who was the CEO between 1958 and 1964, but the ins and outs, and more importantly, the cost breakdowns of the trip. When I was collecting, so many people were worried that they were just paying for me to go on holiday, and obviously this just isn't the case. So it is your job to convince them of this and to part with their hard-earned money and just to convince them it is going towards a great cause. Knowing some projects that the charity is currently working on is great, such as the MRF 10-year plan or the East African Playgrounds Play for $500,000 initiative that they had. This shows that you've got specific knowledge of the charity, and it reassures people that basically you're legit. Fancy dress can always be recommended to participants to draw people in. We've seen a huge variety of costumes over the years. I've seen Mike in a blow-up unicorn with a hat. It was traumatizing, but yeah, it works. We've seen people wearing Minion onesies, and we've seen the Teletubbies. Fancy dress is completely optional though. It really is down to personal preference. I myself wouldn't be seen dead in a blow-up unicorn costume. I do own a Minion onesie, but I'm not about to start parading around Bank Station in it for all to see. Sometimes it makes people feel more confident when they're in a costume. They aren't really having to be themselves, I suppose, and it is great with kids. Things like sweets and stickers can also work really well with children. We've seen things like bubble machines working pretty well. Kids come over and kids come over and then the parents come over, and the parents feel obliged to give you their spare change because you've entertained their kids for 30 seconds. Although I think the takeaway message with bucket collections is when you are trying to support participants, it is really important for you to remember that many will often feel really anxious and nervous when it comes to asking members of the public for money. Remember, they're new to this and they haven't gained their no shame persona yet. 4 years in, I wouldn't think twice about standing in the middle of the street asking for money with a bucket, but first year me was terrified, quite honestly, doing it, and it took a long time to build confidence to do it. So it's your job to prepare them as much as possible and make them feel confident and comfortable. At the end of the day, they're your responsibility. They're representing your rag and the charities that you're supporting. So it's key to help them conduct themselves in an appropriate manner, basically. Does anybody have any questions on bucket collections. I'd really love to hear some like stories on bucket collections in the coffee room after. I feel like everyone's got a story to tell on them.
Oh, the most eventful times happen when you're holding a bucket. That's for sure.
Always.
But if there's no questions, we'll crack on because we know time is pressing on.
Yes.
So, no, there is a question. Do we have a question, Ryan?
More of a statement from Dennis. A homeless person once tried to beat me. There you
Pardon?
go.
Say that again, sorry.
He said, a homeless person once tried to beat me.
Amazing. To be fair, that happens quite a lot. But the one thing to remember is just be respectful. So if you're asking for money, maybe don't stand right next to a homeless person who's doing the exact same. But that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for this. Group fundraisers. So on to the next section. Now, these are very exciting. So again, whether it's at the start of the year or throughout the year, these are great for your team throughout the fun on their fundraising journey. Sorry, can't talk. So whether your team is just beginning and is lacking experience on fundraising, or they're not as effective, or they're a bit behind other people throughout the year, fundraisers are a good chance to kind of reset and give everyone an even level playing field. The thing I love about group fundraisers is that everyone has their chance. Everyone has their say. So it's good to have a set structure, a set theme, again, provided either by the RAG or by the leader, improving on their leadership skills and what they've learned in their training and at the start of the year. But like I say, everyone gets a chance to have their say. So I like brainstorming sessions, so probably again in a workshop, bringing people together to see what ideas they want to do, what would be effective. Let them pitch their ideas, to give them mini portfolios if they really wanted to. It depends on how deep you want to develop it. But having multiple plans does in fact pay off, and it will provide money for everyone. Now, quite often the case is that it's not huge money earners, but it does trickle into the bank a little bit, and that's amazing. But that doesn't mean that it won't be a big fundraiser. If you put enough effort into planning it, you've done your market research, and you've got the target audience, and you can see it coming, then it can break the bank. You never know. You're walking your nan's friend's dog, around the block all week in a group could be £1 million idea. You never know. You gotta look into it. But that's the really cool thing. So it gets the ball rolling, especially at the start of the year. You'll find a lot of charity partners when they give their challenge leaders a certain tick list throughout the year. Group fundraisers will be on there every term, because it gets the ball rolling. And after breaks, like after the lockdown team, I know my group are a bit slow at the moment, but we are currently taking on a group fundraiser. But again, I won't get into that too much at the moment. We can go into that in the coffee morning unless someone wants to ask a question now. But it gets the balls rolling, it builds confidence, and you can get so many skills from it, such as raising passion, your leadership skills, your planning of events, your delivering of events, your people skills, your presenting, everything like that. And that these kind of events will get your team to their targets at the end of the year. And it's great. And like I say, there's a huge social aspect to that. And having a socially bonded team is going to be the difference between running and sprinting up Everest versus someone a team that might need a little bit more support. Which brings me nicely onto our next slide. No, my slide's a bit after that, I think. Yeah, Lydia's next. My slide's in a bit. Never mind.
So I'm going to talk to you a bit about letting them lead and identifying strong leadership potential in people. So a key role of a challenge coordinator is identifying standout individuals showing promise and potential. I don't know about everybody else, but you always worry about who's going to take over your position when you leave. I know I was dreading handing over a challenges program that I'd spent a year working on, and I was like terrified it would like die a sudden death if no one took over. Shout out to Beth, who is currently doing a phenomenal job at it, so panic over. It's always great to see people moving through the ranks in RAG, with participants often stepping up to be a challenge leader in their second year after being a participant, and then going on to core committee positions in their final year. the type of person that you're looking for is somebody who tends to take a natural lead in situations and can excel under pressure. They don't necessarily have to be the loudest in the room or control the room when they speak, but they do have to have that motivation and the drive, and that passion about the charity, I think, is the fundamental. It's all well and good being motivated to do the challenge, but if you're passionate about the charity, then you're going to want to do well. So as a leader role, so as a challenge coordinator or a challenge leader, it's key to have the ability to understand how you harness this extra motivation in participants. Giving them more responsibilities, such as letting them organise socials or workshops, can often give them a flavour for what the role is like. Introducing them to the charity partner more will also help them build that stronger bond, and it means that they'll feel comfortable asking questions. And they get to see the perks of the role, and they get to see sort of the downsides and how the charity partner deals with it. But letting them shadow you or the role that they're interested in, I think, is the best way for somebody to learn the ropes. It's far better than a written handover, and it means that they can get all that experience under the belt, really. So yeah.
Amazing. And now it's on to my side. It would have been great if it fed in right, but it's okay. We'll run with it. So socials. Now, I won't go into socials too much because everyone knows the value of socials, whether you're a participant, a leader, RAG, corporate, anyone knows you bond together by hanging out together. That's fact. But what I wanna specify from this is about having a variety and the timings of them. So socials are amazing for really lowering the social walls. It takes the pressure off. It helps people bond and making the friends for life, which is one of the things every RAG prides themselves on. Whether you do them right from the start of the year, well, I'm saying you should do them right from the start of the year, after the welcome meeting, going for ananas, like Lydia said, or if picking up weekly socials, like even after your bucket collection, you can hang out at socials. But the variety that I was talking about is the difference between having constant going out socials, going crazy, and having sober socials, and even walking, hiking socials are great ones we found out in Plymouth. So going out and getting silly is not everyone's cup of tea. At the very start of the year, when I was coming back from placement, I found out I just wanted to go out and have fun and get to know everyone, and I found not everyone in my team came, which was quite a mood killer. But after taking some time to think and plan, and wishing I was told this in hindsight, I started to add a bit of variety to our palette. So we added a lot more sober socials, joint quizzes, bowling, going out on hikes, loads of things like that, and it makes the difference between in bonding in the team. It's important to involve not only everyone in the team, but to invite RAGs out, the charity partners out, again, because getting to know your RAGs and charity partners aids in the clear communication that might be needed later. So it aids the point of no question is silly, that they have the knowledge that they can ask any question because they know these people. They've broken down the walls where everyone is friendly, and it's all less daunting, which is absolutely vital for the year you guys are coming into, especially after COVID. Some of the great socials we found is we did a battle of adventures at Plymouth where we have a fair few different challenges. We tend to we basically gave them challenges and made them go out on a night out and earn points against each other. And I find personally that competition is one of the biggest builders of friendship, because it makes you think, makes you drive. But that's not everyone's case. So you just need a variety to get in there. Training hikes is I want to briefly touch on. So this is really two birds with one stone. You're having socials, people are bonding, but you're also starting to train, which any challenges is always good to have a basic level of fitness, and it's through stuff like that people can develop stuff if they're not the most active. I find even the most quiet, reserved people, when they're out on a hike, the mind tends to wander and people talk about the most bizarre stuff, and again that helps the quietest person bond and make new friendships, which is you can't put a price on it. It's really just so valuable. again, sticking with the COVID theme, as we all know, such as this conference, socials don't have to stop because we can't be there in person. So that's relevant to now, to Christmas holidays, to everything. There are so many platforms out there for video calls, online games, challenges, escape rooms, to really test and build your team and grow together. So it's just priceless. But again, I won't drag too much onto this because I know time is getting low and Lydia's giving me the eyes. So moving on to the next slide.
I wasn't giving you the eyes. So I'm going to talk to you now about when participants get stuck and when they get motivated. We did originally have an activity in the middle of it, but I think if we do that in the coffee room, it might be a bit better because then we can see you all. So it's inevitable for participants to periodically get stuck with fundraising. Some get off to a flying start while others may fall at the first hurdle. Others get off to a flying start and then they feel like they've utilised all of their resources in a few months. It's important for them to know that you're there to support them where and when they need it, and it's important for you to know how to support them. So the best way that I find supports a participant is holding an initial meeting with them. It's far better face-to-face than over Messenger. Obviously, things are looking to be very different over the next year, so Zoom may have to do. But seeing someone and speaking to someone is far more reassuring to someone in need of support. It makes you more personable and relatable. So within the meetings, I would start with the very basics with them. I would create networking maps and fundraising maps to show them all the ways that they can be fundraising. For those of you that don't know, a networking map is a kind of mind map that shows you every single person that you come into contact with on a semi-regular basis. So if I was doing one, I did have an example, but then my laptop decided to crash just before my exam started. So I lost all my stuff, including all my networking maps. So I'll just talk you through it quickly. So I would start by splitting up by location. I would put down my hometown, I would put down my university, and I would then start filling in the places that I go to and the groups of people that I know, such as course friends and RAG friends and housemates. And yeah, we do have friends outside of RAG. For home, I would put down my home friends, my scout group that I was a leader at. I'd put my mum's office, and I'd even throw in my grandmother's book club. A fundraising map, as you can see on the screen, hopefully, is how I like to break down my fundraising. I put everything into 6 different categories, and I try and, believe it or not, it tries to simplify it for participants. So I'll talk you through those briefly. So first off, you've got your donations. These are going to be your initial family and friends donations. They're going to be when you first put your fundraising page up, and they're going to be the ones you tend to expect, like your mum, your dad, your brother, your auntie Brenda that you haven't spoken to in 12 years might throw a £5 on as well. You know, you'll get some unexpected ones. So the next category is events. These include a whole host of things. We've seen some incredible creativity come out of RAG's events before. We've got charity gigs, we've had speed datings, we've had a cheese and wine night. In fact, a couple of years ago, we take no credit for this, we were on placement, but a couple of years ago, a Kilimanjaro participant raised £1,200 on a cheese and wine night, which is abhorrent, but pretty damn impressive, I'd say. We've had games night, so you can do board games, and PS4's Mike was telling me the names of them. I've never actually touched a console, so I'll try not to embarrass myself. I'm sorry, but you know the console-y ones with the screens, yeah.
With the buttons.
Yeah, those ones. We've also had cocktail making nights, which, funnily enough, for students tend to be a hit. You've then got the third category, which is chance of winning. So these are things like raffles and sweepstakes, and each of these can be used in each section of your networking map. So you could do a sweepstake in your mum's office, your nan's book club, or you could do a big one with all of them. But yeah, that's how you utilize your networking map, I would suppose. You've then got public sponsorship, and these are things like bucket collections and transactional sponsorship. So things like Mike said about litter picks and chores and dog walking. And then you've got challenge sponsorship, which are things like unicycling across Dartmoor, which one of our EAP participants did this year, which is pretty impressive. Different people are going to enjoy different things. So some might like to avoid street collections entirely, and others may absolutely love them, like I said. You can also point them in the direction of all the charity resources. So each charity is going to have an abundance of resources for participants to use, from how to run a bake sale to how to set up a pub quiz. And yeah, I don't know if we've got time. Can I quickly run through how to deal with unmotivated participants, or are we cutting it a bit fine?
We've got about 3 minutes.
Cool. I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go. So dealing with go on then. So dealing with unmotivated participants could be really quite draining. However, it is a big part of the role. It's to be expected that participants will dip in and out throughout the year. We can't all be 100% on the ball 100% of the time. You kind of have to re-inspire your participants periodically, and you have regular face-to-face meetings with them to see how they're getting on. If they're sort of dipping in and out, it might be because of personal reasons or family reasons or something like that. And if that is the case, then it's about reassuring them and supporting them and letting them know that you are there to support them. But if it's a case of it might just be a confidence thing, in which case I would suggest partnering them up, either closely monitoring them, or I would utilize the whole team and either do a group fundraiser, or if somebody is showing promise within the team and they are showing strong leadership skills and they have got an abundance of events planned, but I would actually partner them up to see if they could help each other, because you're then assisting both. You're like enhancing the teamwork skills, you're drawing on their leadership, and you're assisting with building up their confidence. And I think to finish off that, follow-up is key. You can't just meet with them once and then leave them to it. You've got to check in with them regularly, make sure that they're feeling comfortable and confident. And it's about complementing what they've done already. A lot of the time it is just reassurance. But yeah, it's also about reminding them why they signed up in the first place, whether it was the charity initiative or whether it was because they wanted to take on a challenge. So if it was because they wanted to take on a challenge, then get them on the training hikes, get them in the physical fitness side of things. But if it was like the charity initiative, then get them to have a chat with a charity partner. These guys are paid to work full-time for charity, and they are the most inspirational people that you'll meet. So get them to have a conversation with the partners and they'll be back to it. So yeah, sorry, that was a real quick run through of that. If anybody does want to have a chat about that, then feel free to drop me a message. I could talk about that all day.
Yeah, we'll be back for a bit.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's really good talk. Jamie's just put a link to the coffee table in the chat, so if anybody would like to continue or ask any more questions, just click on the link and we can join you over there.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks so much for everyone for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. And can I just say thanks so much to everyone that's organised the conference. It's definitely not what we had in mind, but you guys have knocked it out of the park, and it's been really great to listen to everyone speak. So thank you so much to the NASFA committee.
Yeah, it's an absolute privilege to be here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Am I right to stop screen sharing? Yeah, thank you. Am I right to stop screen sharing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
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 Oh, should we all click on the link?